Hello, and welcome to the 7th episode of the Talos Principle. Last episode we went through level 6 and got everything there is to do there. And now we're on the final level. Of course, as said in the last episode, there's still a few stars we need to collect. So after this, I will be spending a last episode in here for a while, collecting those stars, and now I want to discuss some changes and general improvement ideas I have for the series. Let's begin. Pause the video if you need to read. The singularity has a lot of different meanings, but within the terms of AI, it's when artificial intelligence reaches the level of human intelligence and then is able to surpass it. Of course, surpassing is at an exponential rate. This is an interesting idea for why people are afraid of AI, but ultimately I don't think it's necessarily true. People really are afraid that the Terminator or RoboCop or whatever will rise up and shoot them in the face. But that isn't to say that people don't fear the idea that we are mortal and that there is no soul and that the brain is all there is. We certainly don't need to develop robots in order to know that, though. The most basic of neuroscience, any mental disability shows this point perfectly. Nadia Sarabai, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, is a fictional person made up for the game. Nomadics, as far as I can tell, isn't an actual field of study or philosophy. It's derived from nomatic, which means of or pertaining to, knowing or understanding, which in turn derives from noema, which means thought or what thought is about. I had a full-blown conversation with the entity in the archives today. Can't say it was terribly helpful. Still, perhaps I can charm some information out of it further down the line. Sheep version 69. Well, it seems the archive didn't want to talk to us quite yet. And that's fine, because I have things I'd like to talk about right now. I spent the past few episodes talking about human-like robots. I think now would be a good time to discuss the matter of my own username and talk about robot-like humans. Indeed, it's time to take on the ever-interesting topic of transhumanism. Transhumanism is a philosophical movement, one centered around the idea that the human body is not optimal and can be greatly improved upon. The idea that we aren't the apex of everything there is, that there's a lot of difficulties and issues that crop up with the very biology of humanity that we shouldn't have to put up with simply because we're born human. It seems appealing, but what are some of the actual reasons? What's deficient? The reason we get diabetes is because, well, type 2 diabetes is because we consume too much sugar. And we can consume too much sugar because we have so much abundance available to us that was previously completely inaccessible. Come on, mate. One of the reasons you don't hear about really ancient cases of cancer is because people didn't really live long enough for their body to stop being as proactive in fighting it as they are when they're younger. Like, cancer crops up pretty much all the time, but our body has regulations and agents that are able to fight it. It just wears down eventually. When it comes to the mind, the human body isn't exactly optimal either. Consider, like, the Large Hadron Collider one of the greatest achievements in human engineering ever. What would it take to make a particle accelerator like that? Well, you'd have to have a huge understanding in physics, in engineering, in computer science. Large Hadron Collider took hundreds and hundreds of people to complete, and a lot of those people had to be skilled in multiple different areas. But the more we understand about the universe and how it works, the more we'll need to know in order to unlock any other secrets about it. As far as science is concerned, we're going to have to start being Renaissance men for all these different fields. And to learn all of that, to take in all the information, how many of you remember everything at all you've read in your textbooks at school? Your books for physics, or chemistry, or biology? I'm going to guess none of you. I'm going to guess that even people who remembered a lot don't remember everything, and that's fine, you know. We're only human. We can't memorize everything. We just aren't built for that. There was no selective pressure in evolution to have the kind of memory that would allow you to memorize every single page of a book. That's why those very rare cases I'll get to those later, where people do have such incredible memory are so astonishing. So, with limitations in what we can do physically, and limitations in what we can do mentally, it's no wonder we rely so heavily on machines for things that require a lot of computing. But the question is, why rely on machines for absolutely everything? At some point, I think, we're going to want to rely on just ourselves. I mentioned how difficult space travel is. The fact that a human being is very difficult to keep alive in space. Well, what if you can redesign a human to not require oxygen in order to breathe, but have it supply its brain and organs by other means? That would certainly be something. I'm not going to say that transhumanism is right around the corner, or that there aren't any issues in it. There's quite a few issues that can be brought up, and I'd like to go over them and some of the possible solutions in future episodes. But the big issue right now is, how do we even get there? Like, where even are we in the grand scheme of things? Right now, we do have some prosthetic organs, but they're still not entirely optimal. If you had an organ failure, your first thought would be get surgery to fix your organ. And if that doesn't work, then your thought would be get a donor's organ, because even someone else's biological organs are still much better and much more efficient than any mechanical ones. I have read an interesting book called Beyond Human by Eve Harold, where she talks about the evolution of various artificial organs, the development they went through, and how they've gotten better and better and better. But even then, with that being said, another big hurdle for transhumanism is the fact that right now, with artificial organs and prosthetics, those aren't used to improve upon the human form. Those are used in an attempt to get the human up to a base level, a minimum amount, a minimum ability. We're not yet at the level where we're able to, say, design a heart that will do far, far better than any human heart can, simply because we want a better heart. I'm getting sick of this organic one. It's crappy and failing. I'm going to get a heart that won't be affected by clogged arteries, that won't have any major issues with age. I just want a bare heart. I want a liver that is able to filter toxins out of my body, but isn't going to filter out any of the effects of alcohol until I specifically want it to. I think I messed up here. When I went through this level the first time, I had a heck of a time figuring it out. There's also the issue of how available would this technology be. When phones first came out, they were reserved only for the wealthy. When planes first took off, only the wealthy could really afford to use them. Even when cars were first released, it was a luxury. Or computers cost thousands and thousands of dollars. But that's the thing, that's when they first came out. These days, computing technology that would be worth thousands and thousands of dollars are an everyday common item. There we go, I'm not completely stupid, just partially. But as the technology improved and demand for it increased, more and more people had access to them. There's even countries in the world that are dirt poor, that have nothing, no real resources, no great value, but some of them still have access to machines, like computing technology. The amount is few and far in between, but they're out there. It is still troubling that initially the rich and powerful would be the only ones to have access to this technology. It's not a consumer product, it's not a convenience, it is improving upon humanity itself. They would, in the most literal definition as one can possibly have, be better people than everyone else. But at the same time, that's not strictly an issue of transhumanism, that's an issue with society at large. I mean, even today, at least in the United States, healthcare is a major issue where a ton of the population just isn't able to afford it. And then there's some real assholes who want to make it even harder for a lot of the population to access it. If there's anything that really needs to be cleaned up before transhumanism becomes a big thing, I think politics will have to be one of them. Not just the whole conservative versus liberal debate, but maybe even the whole work to live method of society. Some people worry that with the advent of transhumanism, we'll see a surge in the eugenics movement. The idea that some people are far less fit, far less good, just overall horribly defective human beings, and that they should be eliminated. I mean, there are defective human beings, but we're kind of at the point where we realize maybe that shouldn't be strictly a reason to kill them off. Like Stephen Hawking is a defective human being. His brain is unable to communicate with the rest of his body. He's probably one of the smartest people alive, like, period. There's still some value to people, even if they aren't able to function to their fullest capacity. Well, transhumanism, wouldn't we see the rise of that thinking again? Oh, you're not augmented with eyes that are able to see in the dark, or kidneys that are able to filter out even the most potent of poisons from your blood. Why are you even alive? Why even go on living if you can't just walk around in space without any external suit or anything? Just go around in your birthday suit, waving your dicks at planets and moons. I personally don't see that line of thinking making a return. For the same reason that we don't think that we should just nuke out all of these third world nations, go in and wipe them clean and set up our own post-industrial strongholds over their huts and fishing nets. And I've mentioned before that with the rise of technology, with things being more and more easy for people, being in less stress and turmoil, they're more and more willing to give egalitarian ideas the benefit of the doubt. Now you can argue that cases like, say, World War II and Nazi Germany were instances where technology was growing at a rapid rate, but there wasn't a rise in egalitarian values. And that is true, but you also should realize that the reasons the Nazis got into power in the first place was because of the Treaty of, I think, Versailles or something. I forget how to pronounce it, but a post-World War I treaty that utterly tanked Germany's economy. Get an influential speaker and a scapegoat, and you've got the recipe for mass human slaughter. There's a lot of issues going on in the world today, and that's not something that transhumanism as a philosophy can account for. It's simply something that we as people will have to be on the alert about, to be watchdogs for human rights and for intellectual ingenuity, and not fall prey to primitive tribalism and us versus them mentalities, at least not over things like the way we were born. world's a complicated place, and a single philosophy can't account for every possible issue, and it doesn't have to. Transhumanism is about taking the design evolution has given us and improving it upon it, adding some intelligence to the process, and designing things with a purpose in mind, going for great or perfect, and not just, well, it doesn't kill you all off, so I guess it works alright. At the end of the day, no one can really predict what tomorrow will bring with 100% accuracy. But I think we should continue to progress rather than remain stagnant or even go backwards. Because the world today is imperfect. The world yesterday was even worse, but the world tomorrow can be a lot better, and that's what I'd like to bank on. I will attend to that, but I know there's a few notes I've missed over here. So just think about what I rambled on there, if you want. Seek out those in this world that would help you. Though only one of us can transcend, we will all share in both the burden and in the rewards, the shepherd. So it's interesting, only one of these robots, including myself, will be able to transcend. A race against time perhaps, and it seems I am losing as all these notes are over here. You've changed, dog version 55. Everything I do now, I do for those who come after me. Yet in doing, I find peace for myself as well. This paradox is the foundation of my existence. So now there's a little bit of development for that guy. While Faith seems to believe his existence is strictly to serve Elohim, the shepherd wants to lead the flock, let's say, to guide them along and do what he can to support them. It's a lot more appealing, in my opinion, of a lifestyle than following an invisible and possibly entirely fictional entity. But I do wonder if any of the other robots around here will come up with their own philosophies, and maybe come up with something better. He must have been convinced by one of the emails we read on the terminal.
When I was in 9th grade, my parents took me to Pompeii. At first, I was amazed by the feeling of walking through an ancient city. But then I suddenly got scared. I realized that I was walking through a real place, where real people had lived, people like myself, with mothers and fathers and lives and hopes and dreams. And now it was all gone forever. I ran to my father, crying, and told him about this. And he said, I remember so clearly, he said, yes, but we are here. So long as there are people in the streets, the past isn't really gone.
Well, I'm glad she had a better time than I did in Pompeii. While I was there, some gypsies stole 200 euros from me. That fucking sucked. But it is a point that there's a lot of interesting things you can think about when looking at pictures or being in places that have a huge history to them. I think one of the reasons the Assassin's Creed games became so popular was because they let you walk around in these ancient times, back before cameras, back before video, back before any real way to know just what the hell they were doing day to day, not having to piece it all together from fragments of writings, from various bits of art, but just walk around and interact with these interesting figures from history in these most interesting society-changing times from human history. Just incredible to think. There's a lot we don't know about people in the past, and the farther back you go, the more true that is. And it'll be true for the modern era. 2,000 years from now, people will be, well, if there still are people, they'll be asking about what did people in the 21st century do with their time, with their lives? What media did they consume? Did they really put up with these pitfalls and issues in society? They really had no better option. They really had no way to genetically engineer fetuses so that they don't have life-crippling genetic diseases. They really couldn't just download an entire field of knowledge into their mind in a matter of days, weeks, months, or even minutes. They really put up with all these non-renewable resources, just crapping up the planet more and more while their politicians took money from big oil and they just went along with it. No better solution at all. Did they really die and that was a thing? That was something that happened? 1 minute you're alive and kicking, and the next it's the endless void. Not even a way to bring them back, they just died. Who knows what people tomorrow will be asking about today. But as I said earlier, and this is a point I believe strongly and want to stress once again before I end this episode, the present is imperfect. The past was even worse, but tomorrow can be better. So let's not forego progress for stagnation, and let us definitely not walk backwards.
Rejoice, child, for you have fulfilled all your tasks in this land. You have conquered all its guardians and solved all its mysteries. Thus you are appointed its master, and you may do with it as you will.
Well, Lohim, there's still some mysteries I'm yet to solve. And those are things I'll be getting to in the next episode, when we clear up everything we're able to do right now in this area, and then finally unlock the elevator and see what's on top side. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope I made you think a little and gave you something to contemplate on. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, maybe you have your own opinions on the matter. Feel free to write them in the comments. I'm not exactly a big channel at all, in any sense of the word, so I'll easily be able to reply if I can, if I have something to say to you. But if nothing else, I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I will see you in the next one. So long.